Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Ein Sof Learning. In this video, we're going to begin our short talks that we're hopefully going to continue into the future on life, current events, Kabbalah, Torah. We're going to do a class which is a very step-by-step beginner's guide to Kabbalah. It's the introduction to Kabbalah, the basics of the concepts which eventually we need to strengthen within us and integrate the values and concepts that we're going to learn into our life. That whenever we look at the world, we see it through the lens of a Kabbalist. We have to learn how to train our mind, our emotions, and our body to prepare it for the war, which is right now, really, we're in it. The war which we're describing is a war of good versus evil. These videos, of course, are a preparation, a training for how to win the war, how to be on the winning side of the war, I should say. Because the light always wins the darkness. And it's been prophesied, and the Torah talks about it already. Whatever amount of people are going to be alive in the final war doesn't matter. We know for sure there's going to be two sides. One side will win, and that side is the light. The light. However many people in the world are on that side doesn't matter. Even if it's one person who's connected to the light, everybody else against that one person will lose. Because that one person who's connected to the light has God working through him in order to manifest the influence in the creation. So all the more so, if more than one person is connected, which we hope and we know that the nation of Israel is, that's what we're talking about here. The nation of Israel is the light. They are the light, which means that even those Jews, even those people who are lost, that they are not connected to the Torah, because what's the Torah? The Torah is the tree of life. So those Jewish people, those members of Israel who have gone so far off of the true path, which is an unfortunate and tragic consequence of the exile, what we call galut, they will have to find their way back one way or another. Either it's going to be through hardships, which is something I heard before from a rabbi that taught me this. Either it's through desperation, which means through hardships and through different types of tests and difficulties, that Hashem loves his nation so much that he is going to send them difficulties in order to wake them up, that they may return. And the other way is through inspiration. So either it's going to be through hardships or through voluntary, effortful, desirable means. But no matter what path the Jew, the nation of Israel takes, they are going to eventually wake up and choose the light. Either, again, through voluntary means, or Hashem has to send them hardships and then they will wake up. Either way you go, you get to the same destination, which is that the nation of Israel is the light. Because the nation of Israel, what is Israel? What's a Jew? What do they represent in this world? The Jewish soul represents a piece of God in this world. So if you were to add up all of the Jewish people, all of the Jewish souls, I'm not talking about the way that, let's say, there's a Jew who commits acts that are not according to Torah. If there's a Jew who basically has forsaken the Torah, which means they've abandoned God through their observance of the mitzvot, they are still a holy soul because their soul is a piece of God. They received it on Mount Sinai. Every single Jew has it. But it's concealed. It's been concealed to such a degree that what's left instead of the light is a greater darkness. So that's the danger of exile, specifically for the Jews, for the nation of Israel, is that They can either be a very bright light or they can be a very dark void. Whichever one it is, that's up to the individual to choose, and that's the free will. So there are Jews in this world who they are working for the other side. That's correct. They're working for the other side. But it's not that they want to. It's that they have concealed the light of their soul, whose true desire is to serve God, whose true desire is to be on the side of the light, the side of holiness. He's concealed his soul so much that he's left with the opposite, which is a desire for the opposite. And that's the dark side, or what we call the Sitra Achra, which means literally the other side. We don't even give it any sort of a title other than the other side, because we don't even want to talk about it. The moment you start thinking and talking about the other side, which is those forces of impurity which exist within our world, in the highest degree they live in this world. If you look at the Sefirot that I have listed over here, Malchut, which is the 10th Sefirah, the 10th dimension, because we know that there are 10 dimensions in every single world. So the 10th dimension, called Malchut, which represents the physical world, contains the most klipa. Klipa means impurities, shells. Specifically, it means shells, husks. What's a shell? What's a husk? It's a vessel that conceals the light in such a way that it doesn't allow the light to express itself. It doesn't allow the light to reveal itself. Therefore, it's concealed. So within the dimension called Malchut, which is where we live, this world, it's called this world, which is a reference to the physical dimension, which is where we're at right now. The Jewish soul is concealed. And it has to fight to reveal itself. Why? Because the klipot, which this is the world of klipa, this physical world is the world of impurity. It's the world of husks and shells. So therefore, the light is the most concealed in this world. This physical world has the darkest perception of the light. The darkest shade of light is this world. Therefore, there's a war. And this is the only world where you can believe the falsehoods, such as that we're separate from God. Just as an example, that's a falsehood. The truth is that everything is one with the light. That's what the secret of the Shema Yisrael is here to teach us. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. That means, hear, O Israel, Hashem is our God, and Hashem is one. But the meaning of one, if you look at the Hebrew letters which comprise the word, is Aleph, Chet, Daled. It adds up to the numerical value of 13. Okay, it's good to know the geometrical values, the numerical values for future reference. The word Echad means oneness. It doesn't just mean one in the numerical sense, that there's one God, although that's true. There's one divine essence. That's what we mean whenever we say Yachid, Yachid. That means it's singular, like a singularity. The highest Sefirah is inclusive of all 9 Sefirot. Malchut is the lowest level of consciousness, which means it's the most contracted, constricted, minimized, smallest, lowest level of consciousness. The most constricted. The best terms to use to understand consciousness is either it's more expanded or it's more constricted. An expanded consciousness means it's more inclusive. It's more all-inclusive. It's higher in terms of the unity, perception of unity. The lower the level of consciousness, the more selfish it is, the more self-centered it is. That's why if we look at the Sefirot here, we see that the physical world is Malchut, because the physical world is limited to the physical realm of perception, the physical level of consciousness. So doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. I'm not saying that the physical world and physicality and materialism is inherently bad, because physicality can be used for holy purposes. There's different types of klipot. We said that this is the world of klipot, right? But not all klipot are evil, or not all klipot are impure. This is something very important to remember, that a klipa is a shell. It's a it's a garment that envelops the light. So there are certain vessels that are capable of being used for holy purposes. Those are called klipat noga. Klipat noga are vessels, or klipot, that can be used for good purposes, for the purpose of holiness. For example, the skin of a cow is a klipa. The body is a klipa. Skin is a klipa. Um, but we're able to use the skin of the cow for holy purposes by utilizing it as for our Torah. What's the parchment that we use for a Torah scroll? It's the skin of a cow. It's leather. Would you call that leather? I'm not sure exactly if you would call it leather, but it's the cow skin is the parchment that we use for uh, for the Torah scroll, the parchment of the Torah scroll. Every aspect of the Torah, more or less, it comes from nature, because we're using this world and elevating it. We're taking the sparks which have fallen as a consequence of the sin of Adam in the Garden of Eden, which are trapped in the physical world, and we need to elevate them. The way we elevate them is by using them for holy purposes, extracting the light from within them and letting it be used for the holy purposes. And that's the same thing for a Jew. The Jewish person consists of soul and body. The soul is holy, but the body can become impure through sin. Sin is whenever you contaminate the body with selfishness, with the desire to receive selfishly. Because whenever you receive something selfishly, it's a short fuse. It causes all of the light to depart from your vessel. So, but it depends on the gravity of the sin, of course. But nevertheless, it damages the vessel. So you have to repair the damage in order to then reuse this vessel for holy purposes, the way that it was intended to be used. So whenever you defile the body through sinning, either in the world of thought, the world of emotion, or the world of action, as all of us are struggling, but also we're winning. Slowly but surely, the war is becoming more intense, and the light is being revealed, but the darkness is also being strengthened at the same time. This is what the war is. It's light against dark. Therefore, the forces have to awaken. The forces of light are awakening right now. The forces of darkness are awakening right now. What happened on October 7th, I'm not trying to get political, but what happened on October 7th was the awakening of a force which always existed within the souls of the people, but it wasn't revealed. For whatever reason, we were not awake. I'm talking about both the forces of holiness and the forces of impurity. For whatever reason, they were dormant, because there was not a lot of movement happening, not a lot of uh, advancement happening. Because I don't know exactly why. I can't answer the reason why, but definitely as time passes, we're approaching the time of the redemption, the universal redemption, more and more. Therefore, it only makes sense that the elements that we're dealing with in the creation, the forces that we're experiencing, are going to intensify. and polarize because we're approaching the final war, as we've said. So that is really the reason why that it's happening. As time passes, we're going to see more and more awakenings, more and more revelations of light, but for the side of holiness. But unfortunately, the same will be true on the other side in terms of the darkness. The ones that are in the darkness don't know that they're in the darkness. That's the scary part about this, is that we're dealing when I say we, I mean the forces of holiness, which I hope I'm part of, and I long to be privileged to be a part of the light. Of course, we're studying Torah, we're engaging in these actions. God willing, we merit to be on the side of the holiness and to partake in this war, right? Because I'm speaking for myself, I can't speak for everybody. But there are times when we have negative thoughts. There are times when we have negative speech and negative action, God forbid. The worst is the negative action because that's the manifestation of the damage which we caused, whether in the mind or in the emotions. The action is the one that we really care about the most. The way a person acts tells you what reality is like down here. The world of action, that's why it's called the world of action, Asiya. The way people behave, the way people act, is the best indication of what's going on up here. The external is a reflection of what's going on inside. So if a person is, I don't know, he commits sins with his body. So it shows that his belief system is flawed. Because what's the best indicator of your belief system? What's the best indicator of what you believe? Is the way you act. And that's not my words. That's really what it means that the five worlds are ordered in that way. The highest world, it's called Adam Kadmon, corresponds to Keter. Then there's Atzilut, emanation, creation, formation. These six together work together to create, to form the world of Yetzirah. And Malchut corresponds to Asiyah, the world of action. It's in the physical world where we see the progress of how far we've come in terms of our spiritual battles. The upper Sefirot, they are the higher levels of consciousness which we need to learn how to penetrate. We need to learn how to penetrate the higher faculties. The goal really is Chokhmah, Binah, and here there is a Sefirah called Da'at, which is inclusive of all of these seven Sefirot, which you see here. These lower seven, they comprise the knowledge of Hashem. So how well do you know God? Well, it depends. How much chesed do you have? Which means ahavat Hashem. How much do you love God? Gevurah, which represents yirat Hashem, fear of God. Tiferet, yichud beHashem. Netzach, eternity, but is really, that's the literal meaning. It represents the midah of bitachon beHashem, which means trust in God. Hod represents temimut, which means integrity. How well your mind, your heart, and your body are aligned. Hashem Shamayim. That's Hod. Yesod represents Emet, the foundation of your life, which is what Yesod is. The foundation of your life must be Torah, must be truth. Emet means the truth. And Malchut is representing the midah of Shaflut. Shaflut means lowliness, but really it means humility, having humility. These seven attributes, which correspond to the seven lower Sefirot, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Vemalchut, they comprise the knowledge of God. So if a person wants to know God, they have to work on these traits. These are character traits for the most part. If we look at love of God, fear of God, right? Um, humility, trust of God, integrity. These are attributes that you can really say they're character traits that need to be worked on. We have to hone our character traits. This is why self-improvement is so necessary, but within the context of Torah. Self-improvement without Torah is all ego. Unless you're able to learn to subjugate your will, or if you want to call align is a better word. You have to learn to align your will with the divine's will. Okay, therefore you go to the gym, it's actually a mitzvah. It's not just selfishly you're getting more muscles. No, you go to the gym because you want to be healthy, so that way you can be a warrior of Hashem and you can serve Hashem. That's the Shem Shamayim, and that makes the going to the gym a mitzvah. Everything you do becomes godly. Eating food can be godly. Whenever you have kavanah, which means proper intention, you say a bracha, a blessing, and you understand deeply within yourself that you're going to eat this food so that way you can stay healthy and fit and satisfied, so you can work on praying, so you can pay more attention to your studies of Torah, whatever it might be. But you have to find a way to align all of your desires, even sex, because sex is the most potent desire. It's the greatest level of desire, of ratzon. So therefore, it's the most important one. The way we use our yesod, which is our brit. Yesod is right here. If you see on the human body, yesod is the sexual organ. The way we use the yesod, which we said represents emet, the truth, the Torah, because it's the foundation of everything. The way we use our desire, it's very important to know that it's being used for the Lashem Shamayim. Because you can use your yesod for two purposes. The same way you can use any desire for two purposes. Either Lashem Shamayim or Lashem Atzmi. You can either do Ratzon Hashem or Ratzon Atzmi. Ratzon Atzmi means selfish desire, the will of the self. And we know that that is the acronym for Ra. In Hebrew, Ra, Resh Ayin, traditionally translated to mean evil or bad. When we say the tree of knowledge, Tov Vera, good and bad. The word Ra sounds like the Egyptian god, but I'm not sure if they're connected, probably not, right? Ra is Ratzon Atzmi, the will of the self. So what's the essence of evil? What's Ra? Selfishness. Therefore, we might think we're good, and we are to a large degree. But what holds us back are those instances when we use our Ratzon for any purpose other than to increase the holiness of this world for the sake of Hashem's name. Lichvod Shabbat. Shabbat, for example, if you do everything throughout the 6 days of the week, which is the Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, whenever you do your 6 days of work, Sheshet Yamei Ta'avod, Aval, the Shevi'i, the 7th day, which is Malchut, which is Shabbat, Vainafash, so rest. Whenever you do, whenever you speak, whenever you think, whenever you feel, for the sake of Shabbat, which means for the sake of bringing the light down to Malchut, which we know that that's the goal. The ultimate goal is to bring the light down to the Malchut, to correct this world, what we call Tikkun Olam. That is how we're going to bring Tikkun Olam. Whenever all of our motivation, all of our desires are directed in this direction, which means for the sake of Malchut, which is the name of God. Malchut corresponds to Aleph Daled Nun Yud, the name of Adonai. So we're trying to increase the kingship, right, of Hashem in this world. Adonai is the name that we have access to from within the Malchut, from within the Olam Asiyah. Whenever we're in Yetzirah, we're dealing with different names, different aspects of Hashem. Because God has many different ways that He manifests Himself from our point of view within the creation. God is one. He's a singular divine essence. That's the deeper secret of the Shema, right? Everything is one, even uniform, to the extent where there's no differences. Not just that there's no separations, but there's no differences. That's the deepest level, which is the essence, what we call atzmut, the essence of God. Totally not understandable. We cannot understand the essence. But nevertheless, it reveals itself in a multiplicity of ways within the creation. Hence why we have the 10 Sefirot. The 10 Sefirot are not parts of God. They are the way that we perceive the light from our point of view, because we are made with 10 Sefirot. Now, of course, Hashem, this is something that becomes a little bit more not in my domain, right? Not my job to discuss this because it's too high level for me. But this is not an image of God in the way that we mean that Hashem has a physical image. Hashem doesn't have a physical image. He doesn't have a physical form unless you want to say that everything in this world is a different way that God manifests His light. But remembering that, yeah, although it's a different way that Hashem expresses Himself in this world, you can't say that this equals God. You can't say that this human being equals God. This tree equals God. The Torah equals God. Because these things are physical things, unless you're referring to the wisdom of the Torah, which is one with God. We know that the wisdom of the Torah is one with Hashem. So too are the Jewish souls. These three things, Hashem, the Torah, and the Jewish people, they're echad. All three of them are one. But nevertheless, we're talking about within this world of falsehood, where there is a contraction of the light. So you cannot point at something and say this equals God. You can say it comes from God. You can say it's included within God, because that's true. Everything that exists in this world comes from God. Therefore, it's necessarily included within Him. Something we will learn in Talmud Eser Sefirot, that in order to create something, in order to give to the next person in line, you have to first contain it within yourself in the first place in order to give it. I cannot give you a pencil unless I have a pencil. And so too, God cannot create a world unless He has within Him those powers. But they existed in a state of echad, which is before the creation. Before the creation, everything was one. But then He contracted His light, which is what the Tzimtzum was, which we will learn. Don't worry, we will learn. He contracts His light, and He emanates His light into that contracted space. Because whenever you contract light, what's the result? It's a darker shade of light. For example, if you put a lampshade over the light bulb, you just dim the light. So you created a certain type of space in a way, because that space refers to the darkness that remains within the vessel, which was once fulfilled with light. This entire world at one point in time was full of light. But when we say time, I don't mean like physical time. We're talking about in terms of cause and effect. The highest level of consciousness, the light is here. The light is here. Even in this world, the light is here. Because in the highest level, everything is one and everything is the light. Darkness is an illusion. But that doesn't mean that pain isn't something we experience in this world. Suffering and tragedy is not something that we experience in this world. We do. But the highest possible level of consciousness is even during the suffering. God forbid anyone should suffer anything. God forbid anyone should feel any pains. God forbid anyone should feel any depression. But we understand that this world is the world of tests. Therefore, there needs to be darkness in order to reveal the light. So there to appreciate the light. Um, but um, but the darkness is really just the absence of light. It's not independent. Therefore, if you go to the highest level of consciousness, there's nothing but light. Because the darkness comes from light. The darkness is dependent on the light. That's why we say that the klipot, they're like parasites. Impurities, forces of impurity, what they really do is they feed off of the light. And in order to get power, they feed off of the light. It's like a black hole. What happens when a black hole eats light or eats things? It becomes bigger. Becomes bigger. It's like Agario. The little character, the bubble characters, they eat each other and they become bigger. They become bigger. It's all about me, receiving, 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 receiving. There's no giving. Darkness is a void. Darkness, or no, it's different than a void. Darkness is choshech, and the void is the emptiness, the lack of everything. Not just the lack of light, not just the lack of darkness, but also the lack of darkness. So there's a difference between a void, what we call halal, and choshech, which is darkness. It's like in Star Wars, okay, they have two forces, light and dark. They call it the light force and the dark force. This is what exists within this creation as well. There's the light force and the dark force. They are both a force. They are both a force. However, they are not independent. To go to the highest level of perception, like we said, everything is one. That's why I said it's an illusion. I wanted to clarify why I said darkness is an illusion. I wasn't trying to take away from the pain and suffering that people experience in this world, of which I also take part. Try telling a person who is suffering through a disease or through a difficulty in this world, and try telling him that it's an illusion. Even if you're right, that doesn't help. The right approach to a person who's experiencing difficulty, not to tell them it's a illusion, is to say, yes, I feel your pain. I'm sitting with you and I'm going to talk to you because I care about you. I have compassion. I have empathy to have patience with the person, mercy. This is the right way to deal with a person who is experiencing difficulty. Why? Because that's the way that's the way we want Hashem to deal with us. The way we deal with others is the way Hashem deals with us. If you're compassionate towards others and you're not quick to judge, you're not quick to speak bad and think bad about people and condemn them. If you're able to find the goodness within the darkness, Hashem is going to find the goodness within your darkness. And he's going to focus on the goodness within you. He will focus on the goodness within you. That's what we try to do. We say, Hashem, don't look at my darkness. Look at me for who I could be. Look at me for my potential. Look at me for the light in me. See the image of God in me, which you said, I was created in the image of God, right? See the image. See my potential. Don't see my yetzer hara. Don't see my darkness. Because yes, I have two sides. But don't look at my other side. That's what love is. Love is whenever there's an unconditional connection between two forces, two energies. They have an unconditional connection. What we call one. That's why the word one, echad, is 13. the same numerical value as ahava, which means love in Hebrew. To love means to be one. Therefore, even on the deepest level, everything is one. On the deepest level, everything is one. Our perception of separation from each other, my hatred towards you, my perception of separation from God, my perception of separation from myself, from my soul, is a consequence of the contractions that leads us to this world. This world is the most contracted level. So it's just a fight to free ourselves, from the slavery of Egypt, which means this constricted level of consciousness, which means that we're held captive by our egos. We're held captive by our evil inclinations. The captives that we see in the physical realm, which means like we saw in Gaza, for example, where they're the literal Jewish souls, which we know they're light of God, that are held captive by the other side, physically, literally. That's the manifestation of what's going on up here within the collective consciousness of Israel. Everything that happens in this world is the collective consciousness. We are experiencing the consequence, the effect, the result of our collective consciousness. That's what this world is. The manifestation of what goes on within the mind. That's why I always emphasize that the war is inside, is not outside. Fix the problem, which is inside. Therefore, you don't have to suffer the consequences of the outside, which means the wars and the evils that we see in the physical world. What happens in the physical world is a consequence of what goes on up here. Therefore, if we each turn our attention inside, inward, not outside, don't look for the solution outside. The solution is inside. The light is in you. And that's the beauty of learning Torah and Kabbalah. You learn not to be a victim to the oppressions of the outside world, which, yes, it's true. Many times you look out into the world and you see oppression, you see injustice. Some people say that there are Jews oppressing Palestinians. Some people say, no, it's the other way. The Palestinians are oppressing the Jews. The concept of oppression, definitely something that we see. Doesn't matter where it's coming from, who's doing what. It matters, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. But that's actually also an illusion. Why? You think God is an oppressive force? You think God is an oppressor? Hashem is Yud He Vav He, Midat HaRachamim. He's all merciful. He's all gracious. He's El Rachum V'Chanun Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed V'Emet. No Tzer Chesed La'alafim, no Se'avon V'Fesha, V'Chata V'Nakeh. Forgiver of sins. He's patient. He has mercy and compassion on his creation. He gives them time to do teshuvah. When they make a mistake, he doesn't punish them immediately. That's Hashem. But then there's Elokim. Elokim is the attribute of God, which corresponds to Midat ad-Din, the attribute of judgment, justice. The wrath of God is expressed by Elokim, not Hashem. Hashem, all love. But Elokim, he is that level of the light. He is that expression of God which exacts punishments. He is the side, so to speak, of God, which responds to injustices that are done down here. He brings the payment, he brings atonement. Elokim is the force of justice, force of nature, by the way. Nature is Elohim. Tornadoes, earthquakes, all of these things are here to respond to what humanity does. If humanity is on the right track, nature works with them. In other words, humanity is working for God. Therefore, they elevate nature as well to serve God. Nature can serve God, of course. But if humanity, especially we're talking about the nation of Israel here, the Jewish people, if they are capable of overpowering their nature, which means their Yetzer Hara, if they're capable of going above their Yetzer Hara, then guess what happens? The entire nature becomes uplifted. But if they are not successful, and I'm talking on an individual level, because there's always going to be tzaddikim. There's always 36 righteous people, at least, within the nation of Israel. But on an individual level, okay, so we can be righteous, or we can choose to conceal our righteousness. That's the two choices: light or darkness, right? Life or death. So if we are not capable of, as individuals, as on an individual level, if we're not capable of overpowering, uh, overpowering our Yetzer Hara, but unfortunately, the force of nature overpowers us. Therefore, our experience of life is that Elohim is responding. It's through the lens of lack, through the lens of unfortunately certain hardships. That God, remember, Hashem is Elohim. That's the deeper secret. Hashem hu ha-Elohim. That's why I posted it on the video. I'm gonna maybe put it on the screen right now so you can listen to it. It's a beautiful vocals expressing this deep and timeless truth. The force of Elohim, which we know is din, judgment, equals, not that it from our perspective, but on the highest level of perception, the deepest level of unity, which we said everything is one. Elohim is Hashem. That means the judgments, the punishments, they come from Yud Hey Vav Hey still. Yes, they're expressed by Elohim, but guess what? Elohim is one of the ways that Hashem expresses himself, which Hashem is the Midat HaRachamim, mercy. Therefore, he punishes you not out of hatred towards you. Hashem doesn't hate the Jewish people. Whoever hates the Jewish people hates God. I don't think God hates himself. However, he conceals his love. He conceals his love. That doesn't mean he hates, it doesn't mean he stops loving. Because again, on the deepest level, everything is one. Period, period, period. So he can never forsake the Jewish people. God will never abandon the Jewish people. Even if they fall into the deepest levels of impurity, there is always a way to return. There is always a way to return. That's teshuvah. He always leaves that. That's why he's, at the end of the day, the rachamim. He gives you a chance. He gives you opportunity. He's not going to let the forces of impurity win. He's going to fight our battles for us. All he wants is for us to choose him. All he wants is for us to have our desire in him. To desire him. He desires us. He desires us. He desires to be one, not just on the deepest level, but even in this world, which is the lowest level. He wants to be in control of the entire order of creation, which means we need to invite him. That's the system that he created, where we need to invite him. We need to bring him down. Therefore, we have to awaken our desire to receive the light of God within ourselves in order to be a channel, a conduit for the divine in this world. And that's the time of the redemption, when the Jewish people have overpowered their nature and they have made space for God, for godliness, for the godliness of their soul, for their soul, their neshama, to dwell within their bodies. Once the Jewish people, once the nation of Israel becomes successful in revealing its neshama, its soul within its body, for when enough Jews do this, this is the time of redemption. The war is within. The nation of Israel is responsible to bring the light, to teach the Torah. That's what it means. First of all, to teach the Torah to your body, because your body needs to learn the Torah. Your body is wayward. It goes and wants to follow its own desires. You have to be very careful with the body. You also have to teach the heart. The heart doesn't know much Torah either. And most importantly than all, the mind. You are here to bring the Torah down into your body, which means to bring down the light. Because what's the Torah? What's the light? It's the truth. The light is the truth. That's why light allows you to see. Whenever you have truth, you have clarity. When you learn Torah, it brings you clarity. That's why they call it light. So what's darkness? It's the absence of the Torah. It's the lack of knowledge. It's ignorance. Darkness is ignorance. Light is knowledge of God. So I hope that this was a relevant class to bring these concepts that we're dealing with within Judaism, within Kabbalah, within the Torah, the secrets of the Torah, to the forefront of our minds, to understand that everything falls under this system of Kabbalah. Kabbalah is the science of the Torah. It's the fundamental, I would call it the fundamentals of Torah. Because if you don't know these fundamentals that we've just explained in this video as an example, then you have no framework within which to understand the stories of the Torah or the Gemara or the commentaries. You have no reference or framework to understand the Torah unless you know this framework. This is the fundamentals. These are the frameworks. You have to know the terminologies. What's the difference between light and vessel? What's the meaning of Keter, Chokhmah, Bina? What are these? What are these 10 Sefirot? Don't feel left out if you don't know them. That's the beginning of the journey, is to ask. And you learn and you sit and you become serious learner. And eventually all of the people, all of the land will be filled with the knowledge of God, which is during the time of the redemption. But we've got a lot of work to do until then. So again, Shalom. I hope that this was relevant. It increased your clarity to a certain degree, that you may return back to these videos and continue learning. Continue your journey, because we've got a way to go before the Messiah comes, before we bring the light for all people. Thank you so much for watching. Please share the video, comment. I'm going to do live streams from now on instead of just regular videos. So that way we can make this more interactive. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.